The race to 5G is on, and the battle for talent is getting fierce. Welcome to 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, a podcast dedicated to helping you face the future workforce head on. Navigate this challenging talent landscape with innovative strategies to attract, retain, and engage people in this new world of work. Only here on 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, CEO of Broadstaff Talent Solutions.
Thanks for joining me today on 5G Talent Talk. I'm Carrie Charles, your host, and I am so happy that you are here. We have an exciting episode for you in the studio. Actually, not in the studio. I wish he was in the studio, but he's so busy. I don't think I could ever get you in the studio. I have with me Christos Karmis. He is the U.S. CEO of Boldyn Networks. Christos, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
All right. Well, thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me. Good to speak with you.
Yes. So, Christos, tell me, how did you get to where you are today? I know that's a long story, and just, maybe some highlights of your journey to the seat that you're in now.
Sure, Carrie. So, it's really probably like a lot of people where I sort of stumbled into the industry and into the role that I'm in. I think it really started, I've always had a passion for engineering and technology. And, I went to school and I studied engineering and really enjoyed that. And then my first job out of college was with a company called Harris Communications. And so, as the name suggests, they're a big communications company, particularly in the defense sector. And they're doing a lot of work in space, which is really kind of why I chose to end up there. And, it was an amazing company. The technology was amazing. If you just think about, how communications actually works, right? Sort of the details of it. I mean, pretty amazing. And so I enjoyed that position. But after a few years, I realized, there's a lot more that I didn't know, that I came to sort of realize that I didn't really comprehend at that time coming out of engineering school. And, at that time in engineering school, they don't really teach you about finance, accounting, marketing, management. I mean, they probably do now, but at that time, they really didn't. So I decided to go back and get my MBA. And so I did that, and then did an intern for the small company called Deloitte, that you may know of.
Right.
And it was a great company. I love the work. I love going into looking at different organizations. The people, super smart, very driven. So I did an intern there between my 2 years, and they offered me a job when I finished my second year, and I jumped on that and really enjoyed working there. And, as the guy that had the communications background, Deloitte was doing a lot of work at that time for the wireless carriers, as you can imagine. That was maybe 2001-ish. And so, we had big customers, companies like Nextel and Singular and, some other brands that, kind of merged throughout the years. And so we did a lot of work around, how to help those carriers build out their network infrastructure, whether it was how to do it more effectively from a financial perspective, how to help with lease administration, process, systems, all those types of projects. And I really sort of loved the industry, and I loved the people I was working with and the clients that we were working with. And it was an exciting time because everybody was building out their network so aggressively. And, then this little thing happened with Enron. And all of a sudden, if you worked at Deloitte or any of these big audit companies, you couldn't continue to provide consulting services. And so I really had to look around and decide, what to do, because a lot of the clients we were consulting with basically, couldn't continue to have Deloitte do consulting services because they were the auditor. And, at that time, I decided it was time for me to sort of look to do something different. And I kind of joined this startup tower company that essentially was started with a few people formerly from Deloitte who, weren't done in the industry. I would say really enjoyed what we were doing and wanted to continue to do that. And that was really sort of the genesis of mobility. And in those days, and that was probably around 2005, most of the business was focused around sort of the tower infrastructure and how do we continue to build out towers, under a model that's fast but makes sense financially. And the business really kind of started off essentially as a tower company. And really, I joined the company at that time. I was really focused on growing our business with Nextel, if you can remember them before the Sprint merger. And really just never looked back and kind of went from Nextel to, different carriers and kind of grew up in the organization and ended up running the business here in the US. And then through a series of different mergers and recapitalizations, we basically are now under the Boldyn Networks brand globally. So I think we're one of the largest neutral host infrastructure companies, and I would argue, one of the most innovative ones as well. And we've got a great team of people at the company. It's I think everyone's excited for what we're accomplishing in the industry. I think excited to be under the Boldyn brand going forward. So it's a great time, and just super fortunate to have built the relationships I have and to have a great team of people, at the company that we work with every day.
Let's go a little deeper into the Boldyn story, and maybe you can talk about the companies that were integrated, go a little bit more into the services that you provide, who you serve, et cetera. Just tell us more.
Sure. There's a lot to tell. So this company that most people in the U.S. haven't heard of before, called BAI Communications, they basically acquired mobility several years back, and the only other investment they had in the U.S. was this other company based in New York called Transit Wireless. And so in the U.S., we continued to operate mobility as mobility. Transit Wireless continued to operate as Transit Wireless, and BAI Communications, is really more of a global firm, right? They've had a huge presence in Australia. They run transit networks in Hong Kong. They have a business in UK, Ireland, Europe, at that time in Canada. And so the biggest portion of BAI Communications was really all international, except for the mobility acquisition and Transit Wireless. And so we continued to operate those businesses. We kind of knew we needed to sort of figure out what to do longer term. And then along the way, we decided it was a great opportunity to acquire another business in the U.S. Called Signal Point Systems. And we knew the team at Signal Point fairly well. We were big believers in kind of their mission to provide communication solution to military bases, essentially, right? They're one of the largest providers of connectivity to military bases. So that was a segment that I think we were excited to enter into the market, and difficult to enter into that without any history. And so Signal Point sort of gave us a team, gave us the presence to go do that. And then just because everyone was bored and didn't have much to do, then we decided there's this other company in the U.S. called Zenfi Networks. If you remember Zenfi. So Ray LaChance and Victoria Lambert, right? Great team at Zenfi. We were really bullish in terms of the potential for smart cities. We loved what the legacy businesses had in New York already without Zenfi. It was super complementary to say, how do we have an even bigger business in New York with a fiber business, with a larger outdoor small cell business, with a big smart city business around the Link kiosks that Zenfi had. And so we ended up acquiring Zenfi, and then we looked around, and there was really sort of two big challenges that we had as I think a global business and a US business. One was we had all these different brands. It was super confusing to everybody we spoke to, who's mobility or Zenfi or Signal Point or Transit. So who are we working with as customers, as our US customers? And then, we have a lot of customers that are also global in nature, and, we're talking to them with our colleagues in Europe, and then trying to explain, who BAI is as an even more complicated sort of explanation. So we said, we really need to do two things. One, we need to have one global brand for the whole company that everybody can rally behind. And then separately, we said in the US specifically, we've got 4 different, not just sort of brands, but really kind of 4 different management teams, essentially. And so we also have to integrate all 4 US businesses under one management team. So in the last year, right, we've worked hard. We decided, instead of keeping one of the legacy names, that we would roll out a brand new name. And that sounds easy to do, but trust me, it's complex process to do that and make sure it works, not just in one country, but in all the countries that we want to operate in. So we rolled out the Boldyn Networks brand, which is really a combination of sort of bold and dynamic as sort of the genesis of Boldyn. But it took a lot more research and time than just sort of coming up with that for the name. And then on June 28th, we rolled out sort of the new management structure for the combined US business. And what I think worked out really well for us is each business was really sort of focused in a different part of the industry. So there wasn't a lot of overlap in terms of like the asset base or like what the teams were doing individually. So it was really a case where the synergies of bringing all these companies together was, how do we provide better services? How do we sort of leverage what everybody else is doing, not just in the US, but also globally, to sort of do a better job, for our customers. So it was, a lot of work to get through the integration. Obviously, there's still some things lingering around the back office, ERP, and those types of things, but we're, I think, in a great spot from a marketplace perspective. One brand, one team, everyone's fully aligned. So I don't want to undermine or underestimate, how much work the team has sort of invested to bring us to the point that we are today. But I think, we're very fortunate and very excited for the future. And
yes.
And your question, like what markets are we into, and sort of how do we think of the marketplace? I think we looked around and we do a lot of different things, and we really kind of boiled them down to sort of four main sort of categories. And the first one really being probably around like connected transport or connected transit. And we run, these wireless networks at these complex transit networks around the globe. So we really are sort of the leader in terms of how to provide connectivity to these sort of very complex transit systems, metro rail type networks that are difficult to work in, difficult to engineer solutions for, difficult to operate and maintain. So that's a big part of what we do. That could be the tunnel infrastructure, it could be stations, it could be the trackside systems, whether it's looking at how we're installing the fiber plant and how we're leveraging that for our small cell and our connectivity infrastructure, all the way down to the in-train solution and how are we helping to provide the connectivity actually inside the train to people as well. So this is a very key part of what we do. We've got major networks where we run this in the US, in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, in New York, piggybacking off of what transit has started, right? We've got a lot of work happening in New York and Seattle and sort of markets. So for us, one major segment is sort of connected transit. And then maybe the second segment for us is what we call our connected venue and enterprise business. And this is really our indoor DAS type solutions. And this started really early on with sports and entertainment type venues, when in-building really solutions became necessary, especially with the advent of the iPhone. And today we operate networks across all industry verticals. So not just sports and entertainment, but hospitality, real estate, higher education, healthcare. We're pretty much in every vertical. And this has become, I think, more exciting every year, because it's kind of gone from just like a network for the carriers to really a network for the enterprise and for a network that everyone sort of expects to have, connectivity with. So, we could be providing not just the 5G neutral host DAS, but also the Wi-Fi network. Right? We have a huge Wi-Fi business in addition to our cellular business. And then, we're starting to do more and more in the private network space. So regardless of what the technology is, that sort of connected venue is a key piece of what we do. And then maybe the third sort of segment for us is what we call our next gen infrastructure. So think of that as like our outdoor infrastructure, right? I mean, we built thousands of communication towers, right? Thousands of outdoor small cells. We run some pretty large fiber networks around the country that we're leveraging not just for our wireless infrastructure, but also as a commercial fiber plant where we have wholesale customers. We're tied into data centers, so we've got a decent sized sort of fiber business, I would say, in some strategic markets for ourselves. And then maybe the fourth segment is what we call our connected city and connected community solutions, and those really kind of come in two categories. One is really smart city, and think of smart city as like what we're doing in New York with our Link solution, where we're providing the connectivity to people. In that scenario, it's Wi-Fi. Obviously, it could be small cells and other technologies as well. But it's the largest contiguous metro Wi-Fi network in the country in New York, right? So it provides a significant amount of connectivity for people, and it's not just for people to stream and grab their Uber, but if you think about it, right, there's a lot of underserved areas traditionally where we're providing the backbone of connectivity for people for that. And then I think if you fast forward in the future and you start to think about how do those networks start to get leverage for municipal and sort of city initiatives around sustainability and climate change and those types of things, like we're confident those types of metro smart city networks become more and more important over time. And then probably the second piece of our connected city infrastructure is around our military segment. And we think of that as like the smart base infrastructure, and how are we providing connectivity to our military men and women and their families, whether it's in the base, at home, what it might be. And so we've got a large business where we're providing that connectivity to what has been sort of relatively shamefully a underserved part of the industry that certainly deserves more robust connectivity solutions. So that's we're highly focused on that. So those are kind of like our four big areas, if you think about it: connected transit, connected venues, next gen infrastructure, and then sort of the connected cities. And there's a whole lot underneath all those, but that's really kind of what we're focused on. And we've got a high amount of growth across all segments right now.
Yes. One-stop shop. Sounds like you do it all there, Christos.
Well, it's not me, it's the team, but yeah, we've got a great team.
Yes, yes, we'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to hear all about it. One other thing I'd like to know, just from your opinion, there's a lot going on in the industry lately, a lot not going on, just things are a little different. What are some trends that you're seeing industry-wide? Let's look a little further out. I mean, obviously in 2024, but maybe over the next few years. And
Sure.
how is Boldyn aligning with those trends? You mentioned private network. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but what are some other things you're seeing?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot going on. I think so. One of the biggest trends we're seeing is, obviously everyone's sensitive to cost, but really what we're seeing is more and more large enterprises realizing that it's important to them, and there's an expectation that they have great connectivity. So it's kind of shifted from everybody always looking to the carriers to sort of solve problems to now more and more enterprises saying, hey, I have to have the responsibility and the accountability to make sure that I have good connectivity at my location. And so, what we're doing is we're investing heavily in what we call our sort of enterprise team. So, we're working with large enterprises every day for connectivity, really sort of balancing their needs and what they need, working with the carriers as well. So sometimes, we've got multiple different types of customers, for a particular network. But we're really seeing a lot of that. And I think particularly in some verticals like commercial real estate is a great example where people want connectivity, in the building where they work, especially with people returning to work, post-COVID, right? I mean, more and more real estate owners know that you have to have a great property to lease it out to somebody who's trying to get their workforce, back in the office, and everybody expects great connectivity. And, if you look at the carriers from a financial perspective, right, they can't afford to be in every real estate building, across the country that would like a system. And so I think, that's a great example where the industry sort of pivoted and said, hey, the best way to build out that infrastructure is to have the enterprise or the real estate owner sort of take responsibility to sort of engage directly to install those systems. So like we have a large team that just works with our real estate owners, especially in the commercial real estate space, to ensure we're designing the systems and installing those in the properties, really as the real estate owner sort of being the customer at the end of the day. And that's the network that the carriers can then leverage for connectivity. So I think there's sort of this shift of customer focus, I think, to where, yes, the carriers are, for us will always be key customers, but also we have a lot of enterprise customers as well. And so I think it's healthy for the business. And I think financially it's great for the carriers because it lightens the financial burden to them, for the infrastructure getting installed. And then I think, maybe staying on that theme around sort of cost, right? If you look at it, there's an opportunity still, and we're confident in it, to carry bits and bytes sort of cheaper and more effectively, right? We have a large Wi-Fi business, and we see the results of what we're offloading on our Wi-Fi networks, right? And that's a great example of, a technology that I think, a lot of people have utilized, but not nearly to the extent that, it can provide, great connectivity still. And I think sort of the next layer of that will be leveraging the CBRS spectrum and sort of the MOCN gateways and the ability to look at shared spectrum or shared RAN installations as a architecture to provide, cheaper solutions than having to install either individual carrier systems or even the more traditional neutral host, right? It's all a different form of a neutral host solution, but there's just an ability to do that in a way that we can deliver a solution much cheaper as well. And so I think the industry is pivoting now, right? You're starting to see some cases where the carriers are experimenting with this. So we're bullish this is going to become bigger and bigger. And, we've got a great technology team that we've expanded and really scaled to stay ahead of those trends. And then I think maybe the last area, like you mentioned, is around private networks. And we're obviously really big believers in terms of the marketplace for private networks, the types of customers that opens up that wouldn't be traditional sort of public venue customers for ourselves. And we're investing heavily in that in the US and globally as well.
So can you back up a bit? Just let's say I don't know what that means, right? What do you mean by private network, and who would benefit from it, and why is it growing so fast right now?
Sure, it's a great question, and look, my sort of definition of the way I think of a private network is really that it's a standalone network that's providing broadband connectivity, and it's sort of owned and controlled by the enterprise themselves. And that type of network is really kind of what we're talking about. And I think where that becomes, very applicable and important is around sort of industrial and operational type of assets and use cases. places that a carrier is typically going to say, hey, I don't have like a huge consumer base going in this property. So, it's not going to hit their radar of saying, hey, it's somewhere that they want to sort of invest in the network, right? Or even if we put it in as Boldyn, the carrier is going to say, well, that's great, but there's not enough traffic there. It's really not somewhere that's that important to them. But for whoever's running that business, right, connectivity is critical for them. And so if you think about like transit networks, you think about like warehouses, like manufacturing facilities, like energy plants, port type facilities, right? Those are ones where they're not going to hit somebody's definition of a venue for a public sort of neutral host as network, but all those businesses, connectivity is critical to them. And I think that's where it makes sense. And if you start to look at like what benefits do people have with these private networks, I think there's several key ones, right? I mean, first, reliable connectivity. And so if you look at, somebody who needs connectivity for mission critical applications, it's a great network that can provide that type of reliable connectivity. It's a carrier grade network essentially. So it's not something that somebody's going to want to sort of gamble critical connectivity going in and out of their venue or their operations of a manufacturing or warehouse facility around something that's has issues with it, even if it's only 1% of the time, right? It's a problem for people who are running these critical businesses. So they're highly reliable networks. I think if you look at the coverage and the ability to use high power equipment and cover like large campus environments, whether it's indoor or outdoor, like think of like a port facility and how big a port facility is, right? It's a technology that is, I hate to say easy because I know nothing's really easy, right? But it's a technology that has like an easy application for those types of large coverage areas in a way that Wi-Fi is, not going to sort of be realistic. And then if you think about security, right, and sort of the encryption and the authentication you get with devices off these networks, right, that's hugely important for all of those types of operational facilities. So I think, from a security perspective, that's really important. And then if you think about the versatility of use and how people want to leverage the network, right? They provide, high data rates, low latency applications. You can carry voice on the networks. You can use it for all the different types of sensors and sort of IoT applications that those types of operational customers want. So it really has a lot of benefits and makes a lot of sense. And as connectivity has become more important, right, it's I think more critical to have these networks, and people are finding more and more ways to take advantage of those. And if you think about it, like the reason there's so many use cases there, I think, is because when you start to extrapolate for those types of operational facilities, like the ROI from those types of networks, right? It doesn't take a lot of efficiency improvements for somebody to relatively easy calculate an ROI and say, yep, it makes sense to sort of invest and have this network there. I mean, from just a business process perspective, it's probably important, from just allowing people or devices to stay connected, it's important. But if you just look at, the value on small improvements and sort of operational efficiencies, it becomes really easy to say, yes, we should make an investment because of the clear and sort of direct translation to the ROI for that. And then I think, the other piece is everyone's obviously focused on safety and security, whether you're talking cybersecurity or just physical safety, hugely important for people. And these networks also facilitate that. So I think that ease of calculating the ROI without sort of a big leap of faith that somebody has to make on their part, and safety and security have really sort of been two big drivers that have facilitated these networks.
So let's talk a bit about culture and, what it's like to work at Boldyn. I mean, I've heard, by the way, I've heard wonderful things about the new Boldyn and from people who work there. And so, but really, I know I've heard as well that culture's always been a top priority for you, Christos. How are you integrating the various company cultures, creating a new culture? Like what is that like right now? And what's important to you with the Boldyn culture?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's critical, right? For integrating these businesses and for us to be successful. And we really have spent a lot of time on this and we kind of looked around, and actually for the business in the US and globally, because we were also rolling out this brand globally. So we said, look, there's a lot happening in the US, there's a lot happening globally. We want to have, we want to be the leaders in terms of culture for the business. and have that be a key part of being the preferred place to work in the industry. And we kind of looked around and we said, look, we came up with sort of 4 key principles, I think, as a business, and I'll describe these in a minute, but they're not just words, right? There's a whole series of behaviors under each one of these, and part of this is really identifying what culture do we want to have as a company in the U.S. and globally, and how does that sort of set us apart, and how do we use that to retain, engage, attract, the right people. And so we said, look, the first key principle is one team, and we said, look, we have to operate as one team, and that is one team globally, but also one team in the U.S. as we brought these businesses together. And I think helping people understand, there's a lot happening in this business, like I just sort of talked about, all sorts of different customers and networks, but at the end of the day, we all kind of come together and we say, look, how are we doing as a business? And people have to understand, look, yeah, we'll be successful on individual projects all the time, but really, how do we help everybody sort of be successful? How do we operate as one team? How do we engage and have an inclusive culture to get the best out of all the the brain knowledge and the brain trust we have across the US and globally to kind of do a great job for our customers? And so that this is really important. It gets down to like diversity of people, it gets down to sort of a transparent collaborative culture. All that is part of what we sort of describe as sort of one team for everybody. And then we said sort of the second sort of principle was around sort of customer first, and really taking the time to understand like what pain points do our customers have? How do we help them solve problems? How do we think really, really big? How do we deliver solutions that people aren't even asking for yet? So let's make sure like everyone has a customer first mentality, and we're doing a great job for our customers. And if without that, right, we're not going to be successful for long if our customers aren't happy with this. So and we felt like this was particularly important with a new brand. We felt like in the US that was particularly important with 4 different legacy businesses that were all sort of touching the same carriers, a lot of times the same people, to say, hey, how do we sort of simplify things from a customer perspective for us? And then the third one was around looking at how do we really drive sustainable growth in the organization. And so that's partially, okay, how are we thinking about the business sort of financially from a growth perspective, but also how does the back office functions work, right? How are we thinking about IT, finance, HR, like all parts of the business, operations, right? Our network operations center, like all that kind of comes into, how do we scale the business for really sustainable growth and to scale, and to do that in a way that, we don't lose people on the way from burnout and other things. And then I think sort of the fourth key principle was around sort of adapting and learning, and us saying, look, the industry, as right, it changes fast. And I think, that's one of the things to me that's super exciting, right? Every year, something fundamentally sort of changes with the industry. And so, let's make sure our people see that, hey, we're investing in them from a development perspective, whether it's opportunities within the firm, whether it's training. We're really sort of promoting people to look for ways to contribute in the US business. And also, one of the nice things about being a global business is, right, we can pull from like private networks, for an example, that we just spoke about, was more advanced in Europe and other parts of the globe than they were in the US. So we've been able to take a lot of the learnings there, let our team sort of learn from that and then apply it in the US, and maybe vice versa with neutral host as networks that were more developed here in the US, less so in Europe. So there's a lot of opportunities where we've been able to get our people excited about being part of sort of this global business, and looking for ways to, I think, grow their careers and contribute from that. And so those are, to me, like kind of operating as one team, focusing on customer, driving growth, and then having this sort of culture of adapting and learning for employees. And then all the host of sort of details underneath those that sort of have driven the culture that we have is, I think, a key part of that.
So is there anything that you see or could pinpoint that's really working for your leaders, your teams, to attract, engage, and retain talent in this economic environment today?
Yeah, I think, it's always a challenge, right? Sort of finding great people. And what we really didn't want to do especially with the integration, is lose people on the way, either just because of how the integration was happening. And so we spent a lot of time with our employees, getting feedback to make sure like that everyone feels like they're heard along the way. I think, right, we're super fortunate right now, right? We have a great story to tell in the industry, and I recognize that, and we're really fortunate, right? If you look at the business, every segment that we're in is growing at, double digit rate. So huge success in terms of just like the business in general and kind of what we're doing in the marketplace. And then if I look at like what motivates our people who are here today, right? It's really the people that they're working with. It's the career growth that, they're able to have, especially as we brought these businesses together, right? So many people have had an opportunity to step up into a bigger role, or been more excited about, what does the business look like now that we're a global business, not just sort of a US only business even. And then they see us saying, okay, let's roll out a much more formal training and development plan for everybody, right? Like what is the career path that everybody wants to have here? Like what do you want to do next, right? How do we sort of support you in terms of training that you want to go have? And so I think people see that direct willingness of the company to really sort of invest in people, right? They see and not just an upgrade to like benefits and leave policies and all those types of things, which I know by far we're the industry leader on, but it's really things like, hey, when you're on vacation, like you should be on vacation. Like, don't like, let's not have you working while you're on vacation, and really trying to be respectful of people's, work-life balance, trying to make sure that, yeah, everyone's working really hard, but, everyone also needs some time to, decompress and just sort of get some time away. And we don't want people jeopardizing, their families along the way. And in the short term, maybe it accomplishes our goals, but, in the long term, it's not healthy. So if you just look at the business, right, we rolled out the new brand globally, which is super exciting. I think the global nature of our business is really exciting. I think we're about to make an announcement this week, actually, about something in Italy and Rome. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully, it won't be a spoiler alert when this goes out. So there's just a lot happening in the business that I think people get really sort of rallied behind and excited for. And I think that helps us retain the people that we have. It helps them keep them engaged, right? Our people become one of our best sources for referrals of new candidates that we hire. We've got a fantastic team on our people team that is all over, employee engagement, benefits, recruiting. So I think from that perspective, right, that's been really well. We've been recognized in a lot of the leading employer publications. So I think word gets out pretty quickly, right? People see that. I think our employees are super excited to work here. We have a huge focus on recognition of employees. I think that then sort of spills over and puts us in a position to help recruit more successfully. But it is, I think, based to your question to begin with, it is really hard to find great people, and you're trying to find people who are, smart, motivated, driven, culturally, that are going to sort of fit in with the direction we're taking the company. So, to me, that's one of the most important areas for us to focus on. And I've been, I think, pleasantly surprised with the integration effort. Right, it's been a ton of work, but it's exciting to see how excited other people are about how do we take all these parts of the business that we had before and now turn it into something that's 3 or 4 times larger by integrating all these companies together as well. So it's an exciting time.
Christos, I've heard fantastic things about you as a leader, and I'd like to know, what are your foundational leadership principles that guide you every day? Like who are you as a leader?
Right. I think, well, thank you for the feedback. We like I said, we have a great team. I think if I look at how do I think of myself and in my role and what has led to us being successful, I think, first and foremost, it's leading by example. And that's myself and the rest of the executive team. And that's, the behaviors that we have every day. It's the values that we exude across the organization, right? It's the work ethic. It's the ability to be hands-on and sort of work with the team, not to sort of tell people what they should be doing. It's operating with transparency, honesty, respect for people, being, empathetic. It's being a good listener to people, how is it going, right? Taking the time to meet with people. I mean, I love being in the office and just talking to people, right? So I think a lot of it is just, the behaviors people see, and that's, super important. I think that can't be sort of underestimated. And I think the other, maybe one other item is really empowerment of the team, right? I mean, to me, what really excites people is, when they have a direct say in the work and they're making decisions and they're part of the team that's making things happen. And so for people to be motivated and engaged, right, they have to be sort of empowered to make decisions, and people make good decisions, right? I mean, there's zero concern that someone's just going to make a terrible decision. In fact, if anything, people generally are more cautious, and looking for sort of a validation before making the decision that's already sort of the right decision. And yeah, there'll always be some learnings along the way, but I think, it's really important that the team feels like, they're empowered. And, frankly, I feel like my job is to say, what else do you need, right? Do you need more resources, right? Do you need people? Is it tools? Is there, thought around sort of customer solutions or operational stuff that's becoming problematic that, needs to get addressed? Like, let me help remove the barriers for the team to be successful. And I love that. I love going to conferences, and the team is the one speaking at conferences, not even myself. Like I love to see that, and to see, how people are developing their, their careers. And so I think, that's a big piece. I think culture, like we talked about before, is, hugely important. So I see a big part of my role in making sure, like, we're promoting the culture that we want sort of as a business. And we're, quick to call out areas that need to be addressed, and quick to take action to address those, and quick to ensure, we're also recognizing and sort of rewarding the right people, right? I mean, that to me, that's probably one of the other areas where we have a lot of people doing a lot of great things. And, I love making sure that people have an opportunity and outlet to get recognized for the great work that they're doing. And, that's exciting. And I think, I've got the benefit of sort of having the lens for the organization, not just in the US, but globally as well. So I see a big part of what I can do to help ensure that we're facilitating that collaboration as a company across the US and globally by saying, hey, you know what, like, this problem that this team's trying to solve for, like, these 2 or 3 people over here would be great sort of to bring into the team to help, help address an issue. And for me, that's been super rewarding over the last year, is really figuring out how to take, so many great people that we have in the US and globally, and involve them in, everything that we're doing. And it's a great culture that's highly collaborative. So I think, it's very welcoming and inclusive. I think nobody's, like, stay out of my business. I got this. I know what I'm doing. So I think it's that culture that we have, as a company, that we want to maintain as we continue to grow, is super important. But I mean, that's really kind of what I view sort of my core job around, right? Sort of lead by examples with all the traits, right? Empower the team, promote the culture, and sort of recognize and kind of reward people, and make sure everyone is getting, what they need.
And I just hear the common themes throughout this entire episode of just invest in people, and customers are people, right?
That's
so
right.
It's about the customer, it's about your people, it's about your team, it's about, I just think that Boldyn has the priorities in the right place. So I have no doubt that you're going to accomplish great things. In fact, let's talk about the great things you're going to accomplish. Let's look at the future. What is that? What's your vision? Where are you going? Where are you going in 5 years?
Yeah. So 5 years, 5 years, there's a lot happening, right? If I look at the business today that I talked about, right, we've got double-digit growth in each segment. So if you fast forward 5 years, right, we'll double. I have no doubt we'll, at a minimum, sort of double the size of the business, just based upon kind of what's happening today. I think that's really kind of exclusive of what I would say is the opportunity around that private network business that we talked about. So I'm a huge believer in that, right? We're investing heavily in the team and the technology, and the systems and the NOC and the SOC and all the stuff that's, kind of comes with that. So I'm super excited for how big that sort of private network business will become. And then the marketplace that opens up that otherwise wouldn't have been sort of traditional customers for ourselves. And then I think the other big part of what I do is also help the company globally as well. So I think if I fast forward even beyond the US and say, where else can we grow this business, globally? There's a lot of other countries that I think, 5 years from now we're going to be in that we're not in today as well. And so, I think we'll always be measured in terms of, where we go and kind of how we enter into new markets. But there's sort of a lot of work and a lot of focus being done in terms of new market sort of entry as well. And, I think we'll always sort of look at acquisition opportunities along the way. I mean, certainly we have a team that's capable to do that. And, I think where it makes sense for strategic and sort of growth reasons, maybe we do that. But the core of the business is still, organic growth, right? New networks, stay focused on the customer. But it's an exciting time. I think, we'll be double the size at a minimum in 5 years. We're still being all the segments that we're in today that I described will be there, plus private networks, I think, will be a huge one that gets added on. I think our revenue will be more diversified on the enterprise side, more so than sort of carrier focused, just based off, what we talked about in terms of the customers now sort of opening up beyond just the carriers to be, the enterprises, even for neutral host DAS installations. And then I'm super pumped for the global expansion of the business as well. And what's been nice is, we have a lot of customers that operate global portfolios today. And so, for really kind of the first time now under the Boldyn umbrella, that we're able to, sit down with our customers and say, okay, here's how we're solving their connectivity in the US, and here's other properties that they may have, whether it's in London or Italy or, Hong Kong, wherever it might be, right? We've got a team that is either probably already there or, it's one of the markets that, we're looking to expand into, and that gives us sort of a logical way to go do that. So I think, we're excited for how big the business becomes globally, even beyond just the US.
Well, I spent 3 weeks in Italy this year, so it's my favorite place on earth. So if you need any help out there, let me know.
I'll keep you in mind. I'm ready. I keep saying I'm ready for that Greek, for the Greek island, hospitality initiative, but we'll see.
Right. Christos, thank you for pulling back the curtain and, letting us really see the new Boldyn. And it's exciting. Like I said, I've heard wonderful things about, from the people who work there, the leaders, and just everything that you've said is spot on for what I'm hearing on the staffing side. So how can we reach Boldyn? What's the website?
Sure. Yeah. So boldyn.com, BOLDYN.com, right? Which is it's a combination of the Boldyn dynamic, like I mentioned, which is really the identity, I think, of the company going forward, and descriptive of, the types of people we're looking at, right? Ones that have sort of bold vision on what they can accomplish, ones that are dynamic and can operate as sort of in an environment that's always going to be changing and thrive, and real team players. So yeah, just feel free to check out the website, boldyn.com. I think it'll give everyone some description on what we do, the markets we're in, the roles that we're recruiting for, right? We're still, despite kind of what's happening in the industry today, right? We're still significantly growing our teams globally, but also in the US significantly. We've got several major projects and major initiatives going on, particularly in New York and in the Bay Area and San Francisco. So we're hiring a lot of people. So
exciting times ahead. I can't wait. Well, Christos, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has just been my pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So can't wait to see what you do. It's very exciting.
All right. Well, thank you, Carrie. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the nice words about the culture and the business. We're excited for the team we have and to continue to contribute in the industry and to do a great job for our customers. So thank you very much, Carrie.
Of course. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to another informative episode of 5G Talent Talk, brought to you by RCR Wireless News, Telecom Careers, and Broadstaff Talent Solutions. As we advance into the future, we promise to bring you the resources you need to navigate this ever-changing landscape of 5G to help you attract, retain, and engage people in this new world of work. To access the show notes or leave a review, visit broadstaffglobal.com. Until next time.